There is a device you can build for under $50 in parts from any hardware store, and it will reduce the fuel your vehicle burns. By up to 34%, not approximately, not in ideal conditions. 34% measured gravimetrically, documented in peer-reviewed engineering journals, replicated across multiple engine sizes on real roads. It runs on water, ordinary tap water. It requires no specialized training, no engineering degree, no proprietary parts that need replacing every 6 months. You build it once, you install it in an afternoon, and then every time you start your engine, it goes to work quietly, invisibly, measurably reducing how much gasoline or diesel your engine consumes. It cuts your fuel bill. It reduces carbon monoxide emissions by up to 33%. It extends the life of your engine by making combustion cleaner, cooler, and more complete. ScienceDirect published the research in 2015. The International Institute of Engineering Technology and Applied Science confirmed the findings in 2019. Dozens of independent studies across 3 continents have returned the same numbers, using different engines, different vehicles, different electrolyte concentrations. The result is always the same direction, always down, always measurably better. The global oil industry, ExxonMobil, Shell, BP, Chevron, TotalEnergies posted combined revenues of $1.3 trillion in 2024. That is not a typo, $1.3 trillion. They did not forget this technology existed. That would be an accident. They buried it. That was not an accident. It was a decision. This is the story of the HO generator, what it does, why it works, and why the ability to cut your fuel costs in half was never supposed to reach you. Welcome back to Science of Survival, where we open the vaults. If you are not subscribed yet, hit subscribe and the bell right now. This is where we dig up everything the industry tried to bury. And today we are going to hand you something that will follow you for the rest of your driving life. Every tank of gas you ever buy after this will cost you less. Let us go back. The year is 1800. London, England, late summer. A cramped scientific workroom above a pharmacy on Soho Square. 2 men, William Nicholson and Anthony Carlyle, are experimenting with Alessandro Volta's newly invented voltaic pile. It is the world's first real battery, and they are doing something nobody has ever done deliberately before. They lower 2 metal wires into a glass of water. They connect the battery, and they watch. The water begins to bubble, slowly at first, then faster. 2 streams of gas rise from the wires, one from each terminal. They collect the gases separately. They test them. What rises from one wire is hydrogen. What rises from the other is oxygen. They have just split water into its component elements using nothing but electricity. And metal, they call it electrolysis. The world barely notices. 8 years pass. In 1808, a Swiss engineer named François Isaac de Rivaz takes this exact principle. Hydrogen and oxygen produced from water and builds it into a vehicle. His engine runs on a mixture of hydrogen and oxygen gases, oxy-hydrogen. It moves, it works. He has just built the world's first internal combustion vehicle powered by water-derived gas before the gasoline engine exists, before Ford, before Rockefeller, before any of it. The scientific record confirms this. It is documented. It happened. 55 years later, in 1863, Belgian inventor Etienne Lenoir takes the same principle further. He builds the Hippomobile, a 1-cylinder engine running on oxy-hydrogen gas produced by electrolyzing water. By 1865, 350 Hippomobiles are running through the streets of Paris, 350 vehicles, powered by hydrogen extracted from water, operating in one city alone. No oil wells required, no refinery infrastructure, no supply chain. Then something happened. Petroleum arrived. Rockefeller built Standard Oil. The infrastructure of gasoline distribution was constructed: pipelines, refineries, service stations, at a cost that made alternatives not just unwanted but practically invisible. The hydrogen vehicles did not fail. They were not disproven. The world simply got organized around a different fuel. One that could be extracted, refined, distributed, metered, priced, and taxed at every step of its journey. 60 years after the Hippomobile, in 1920, German engineer Rudolf Erhn was converting truck engines to run on hydrogen. Military applications, documented, real. Then the Second World War ended. The petrochemical economy was locked in. The hydrogen-boosted engine was not disproven. It was simply not chosen. That is not coincidence. That is the architecture of a market, and the architecture was built around one principle. You can only profit from a fuel that runs out. The fuel in the gas you extracted from water in your garage is different. That fuel does not run out. You make more every time you start the generator? Here is what is actually happening at the molecular level, and this is where it gets remarkable. An HO generator uses electrical current drawn from your vehicle's own alternator to perform electrolysis on a small reservoir of water. The water is mixed with a catalyst, typically potassium hydroxide or sodium hydroxide. This is the same chemistry Nicholson and Carlyle demonstrated in 1800. The applied current breaks the covalent bond in water molecules, releasing hydrogen and oxygen gases in a ratio of 2 hydrogen atoms to 1 oxygen. This is called oxy-hydrogen, or HO gas, sometimes called Brown's gas. It is fed directly into your engine's air intake as a supplemental fuel. Inside the combustion chamber, hydrogen has an ignition energy 10 times lower than gasoline vapor and a flame propagation speed 8 times faster. When HO is introduced, it dramatically accelerates the combustion. The gasoline burns faster, more completely, and at a more optimal moment in the cycle. What comes out the exhaust is less burned hydrocarbon, less carbon monoxide, less waste, more work done per unit of fuel consumed. In 2015, Alexandria University researchers published a study. They optimized an HO generator and applied it to a Skoda Felicia 1.3-liter gasoline engine. The results were precise: a 34% reduction in fuel consumption, a 10% increase in efficiency, and an 18% drop in emissions. The lead researcher concluded that HO gas acts as a combustion catalyst, meaningfully improving the energy yield of every fuel injection event. Independent researchers at Ain Shams University tested 2 engine sizes. Fuel consumption dropped by 14.8% in the smaller engine and 16.3% in the larger. Carbon monoxide fell by up to 33%. Hydrocarbons in the exhaust dropped by 27%. A 2023 study introduced HO at 10% concentration into a diesel engine. Fuel consumption dropped by 20% and brake power increased significantly. This is not folklore. This is not anecdote. This is peer-reviewed mechanical engineering published in indexed academic journals. This information used to travel through families for generations because it worked. That chain broke somewhere, but it does not have to stay broken. The International Energy Agency documented hydrogen's energy density at 142 megajoules per kilogram, nearly 3 times that of conventional gasoline. When you blend HO into your combustion cycle, you add fuel with energy characteristics that gasoline cannot match on its own. So why is this not standard equipment on every vehicle sold in America? Here is what a $1.3 trillion industry looks like: ExxonMobil, Shell, BP, Chevron, TotalEnergies, ConocoPhillips. These 6 companies alone reported combined revenues exceeding $1.3 trillion in 2024. Their combined profit, not revenue, profit exceeded $100 billion in a single year. Now ask yourself a simple question. What happens to those numbers if every driver reduces their fuel consumption by 20–30%? The math is not complicated. You cannot patent water. You cannot trademark electrolysis. The core chemistry of an HO generator has been in the public domain since 1800. You cannot build a subscription model around it. You cannot manufacture artificial scarcity. You cannot charge replacement fees for an electrolyte made from water and sodium hydroxide that costs less than $3 a batch. There is no recurring revenue here. There is no quarterly earnings impact from an HO generator you built yourself over a weekend. For an industry whose business model depends entirely on you returning to the pump every week, that is not a product gap. That is an existential threat. This is why you will not find HO generator kits prominently marketed at retail stores. This is why no manufacturer has integrated this technology into a production vehicle, despite the science existing for over 2 decades. The automotive and oil industries share a mutual interest. One sells the machines, the other sells the fuel they require. A vehicle that consumes 30% less fuel is a vehicle that generates 30% less recurring revenue for that second industry. That is not conspiracy. That is arithmetic. What you see instead are vehicles engineered to consume fuel efficiently enough that you do not complain, but not so efficiently that you stop needing them. The sweet spot is not peak efficiency. The sweet spot is maximum repeat purchase. That is not oversight. That is architecture, deliberate and sustained. Now, here is exactly what to do with an HO generator. The materials will cost you between $40 and $60. You need stainless steel 316 liters plates, 316 liters specifically because the alloy composition resists corrosion under electrolytic current. Standard 304 stainless will degrade. You also need potassium hydroxide or sodium hydroxide, available as a drain cleaner for under $10. You need a small reservoir. A 1-liter ADP plastic container is sufficient. You also need silicone tubing, a check valve, and basic wire. Step 1. Cut your stainless steel 316 liters plates to approximately 10 by 10 centimeters. Sand the edges until they are smooth. You want at least 6 plates per cell, alternating positive, neutral, and negative in a sandwich configuration. More neutral plates between charged plates increases efficiency. This configuration helps manage the electrical current more effectively. Step 2. Mix your electrolyte. 1 liter of distilled water combined with 6 grams of potassium hydroxide. This is the concentration documented in the Alexandria University study as optimal for gas production. Stir until fully dissolved. The solution will warm slightly. This is normal. Stir carefully and ensure the mixture is completely transparent before proceeding. Step 3. Assemble the cell plates separated by silicone or a DP gaskets approximately 3 millimeters thick. Seal the assembly tightly. Fill the reservoir with your electrolyte solution. Connect the positive wire to your positive plate stack and the negative wire to the negative stack. Step 4. Connect to a fuse tap from your vehicle's electrical system. A 15-amp fuse is sufficient for a standard cell. Route the output tubing from the gas port of your cell to the air intake of your engine before the air filter. Step 5. Start the engine. Watch the reservoir. Within 30 seconds, you will see fine bubbles forming and rising from the plates. That is your HO being generated. The output line will carry that gas into your intake stream to assist combustion. Watch for steady, consistent bubbling. It should not be violent or absent. Steady means your electrolyte concentration is correct. For maximum safety, install a bubbler. This is a small secondary container of plain water that the gas line passes through. This acts as a flashback arrestor. HO is highly flammable. While a backfire is rare, a bubbler eliminates the risk entirely. This is one step most amateur builds skip. Do not skip it. It is essential for protecting your engine and yourself. One honest limitation: on modern vehicles with ECU-controlled oxygen sensors, the engine computer may compensate for the improved combustion. It might reintroduce fuel to maintain its programmed air-fuel ratio. To fully realize fuel savings, you will likely need an EFI. An electronic fuel injection enhancer is a small inline device that costs between $15 and $30 and adjusts the sensor signal. Without it, older carburetor vehicles see full gains immediately. Newer ECU vehicles need this additional step to achieve maximum efficiency. The total cost, $42.90. A commercial hydrogen fuel booster kit marketed to consumers runs between $250 and $600. That is for components that cost the same as yours to manufacture. And that still does not account for the fuel savings themselves. A 30% reduction in consumption means saving 160 gallons a year. That is more than $500 back in your pocket. That is every year, from a device you built for $50. Let that number sit with you. Ancient engineers ran vehicles on hydrogen gas extracted from water. Modern peer-reviewed science confirmed that supplementing combustion engines with HO reduces fuel consumption by up to 34%, and it cuts carbon emissions significantly. A $1.3 trillion industry has every financial reason to ensure that knowledge stays buried. Because water is free and free fuel does not generate quarterly earnings reports, this knowledge did not disappear on its own. Someone made sure it stayed buried. You now know what it is, how it works, and exactly how to build it. If this video opened something for you, subscribe now. Every vault we open is connected to the last. And the knowledge compounds. The next vault opens soon. What is inside is even heavier than this.